A number of teenagers in Africa are driven into prostitution because of a number of things that happens in this continent. For example, you realize that the poverty levels are very high, and these young people are likely to go and look for money and for livelihood so that they can be able to sustain their lifestyle, and also they can also help at home. So that is one of the reasons that most teenagers will engage in prostitution. But there's also the peer pressure, whereby they want to match the lifestyles of their peers around. And then we also have culture and cultural practices. These ones, they are so much involved, and especially in child marriages, marriage arrangements, early marriages. These are all so much in line with the culture and cultural practices. But there's an area that people rarely talk about, and that is the area of bragging. Most young people, if you ask them how they started or why they started the prostitution, they'll tell you about how people talked about how nice it was, the beauty that it was involved, or the joy of practicing the act because their friends talked about it, or the elder or the older people talked about it. They'll talk about how their aunties talked about the joy it was, how so and so looked nice, and what it is all about. Now, this is what we call bragging. Bragging is giving something a good identity, even if it is bad, to a minor. So, if you're bragging about sex to a young child, then you're pushing this young child into prostitution. So, bragging affects children because you all know, or in psychology, we say people become mature, or the mental area, the mental capacity, the mental brain processes as mature at the age of 24. And so from 18 years to 24, we call them the post-adolescents. And so teenagers really may not be able to see the other picture of life. And that is when bragging about sex to a minor, it is a crime that is likely to be punishable. Why? Because this minor is in a stage we call the inquisitive stage, or the inquisitive mindset, whereby this young person may not be able to understand that some things can delay. Everything you talk about, everything you brag about, they want to go and practice because you've put an inquisitive knowledge, know-how to their mind. And what happens is that they want to go and practice. They want to go and meet their inquisitive thoughts. And so that is why it is a big issue, and especially in Africa, because this encourages prostitution. When you look at it very well, you realize that most of young girls and young boys that join this thing through bragging, and especially bragging from adults, they end up becoming teenage mothers, and they end up becoming teenage fathers. And let me say this, teenage fatherhood or teenage motherhood leads to neglected children. And that is why some cycles in Africa will always continue, because some of us in the education sector, in the awareness sector, we may not be able to do a lot. So when we see adults bragging about sex to young children or to young adults, then we always feel these people are abusing these children. It is abusive actually to brag about the act to a minor, because you are abusing their conscience, you are abusing their naivety, and you are pushing them to practice things that are not in line with their age. Most adults will brag about sex because they want to, to take these children and to take these young ones to their brothels. And that is why they brag about it. They brag about how clients pay good money. They brag about the tokens they get after this. They brag about the power they will have after practicing. They also brag about the ability to meet the needs that the family members could not be able to meet. And so These young children, because I call them children because these are minors, the teenagers, they will abandon the activities or they will abandon the good course of their lives, like schooling, and they will jump into prostitution because someone bragged about it. So, bragging about sex is the most dangerous thing to a child. And this is what I call abuse. So, people have different way they abuse others, but this one bragging is the biggest of all. So, for me, I'm creating awareness of bragging or about bragging to young children. Bragging is crime.